Hi, sorry for the wait there. My name is DDJJ, and I am streaming game development of a game that I'm working on called Perdere. And anytime somebody comes into the chat, just let me know if my microphone volume is good and everything. So who am I and what is Perdere? Perdere is going to be a 2D JRPG game that is definitely a passion project. It's definitely something that I am taking inspirations from Final Fantasy, Disgaea, Legend of Legaia, as well as many other inspirations. So I wanted to stream this game, the development of it, because I wanted to, build a community. I want to get to know people that are interested in these kind of games, as well as learn from my viewers. Anybody that has any feedback, I am totally open to it. I am definitely new at this process. I got a degree in game design, but I am just taking this as a passion project and running with it. So once I send out some information, I will go ahead and get started and just kind of lay out where I'm currently at and what I'm currently working on. And I'm also going to add in something to basically let people know what I'm working on. All right, let's see how that looks right there. I'm gonna switch over to that. That's gonna be right there. Let me go ahead and let's just add a nice little background to that. Apparently it does not want to update. I just want to put a little thing out here just so that when people come in or they're fast forwarding, they'll kind of see a little thing letting them know what I'm currently working on. There we go. All right. Oh, let's try blue. Who doesn't like blue? It's a nice Final Fantasy VII blue right there. All right, cool. Well, I guess I was going to start off just kind of showing where this project is at. It's still very much in the prototype stage. It's definitely not gonna look pretty at this point, but that's kind of the fun, is that we are gonna try and turn what it looks like now into something pretty. Artwork is definitely I would say is my weak point right now. That and music creation. I will have to get into the music creation because I do want to develop my own music for this. So I'm going to jump over to the Unreal Engine. Let's see how this looks in terms of what I'm working on. That's perfectly fine. So if you're familiar with Unreal Engine, you can kind of see what I currently have. I just currently have a little setup right here with this background. Oh, and I am more than happy to go over and explain everything that I've been doing. What's my thought process? How did I get to this point? So if anyone asks that question or leaves a comment in the YouTube comments, I can always circle back and discuss it on a later video. So let's go ahead and take a look. So just got a simple background. I'm just gonna go ahead and hit play, let it kind of show itself. And I'm just gonna make a little comment right here in regards to pixel art. So when you, and if anybody knows how to fix this, I'd be more than happy. Please let me know. I'd really appreciate it. I'm sure there's a simple setting that I just need to look up and research and I'd be able to find it. But when you start Unreal Engine, it applies a filter. I'm assuming it's lighting, atmospheric lighting. So it kind of distorts the pixel art a little bit, kind of makes it a little grainy. So what I have to do is I have to hold shift and press F2, and then this gives you the full pixel art view for your game. So that's kind of what I want. So as you can see, I have this character right now. He just moves back and forth. This will definitely not be in the final product of the game. This is this is prototype. Just wanting to put in movement just to show the character moving. The only animation he has is just standing there with the scarf flowing, not exactly any walking animation. But when you hit a certain point, it's going to ask to do a battle. So we do a battle. You can see 3 enemies are on the screen. As I said, that artwork is something that I am definitely new at. It's definitely something that I'm trying out. Because I really wanted this project to be something that I create with my vision. So I'm just giving it a shot. I've been having a lot of fun with it. So as we can see, JRPG style. Player sitting there, it's the player's turn. Obviously I don't have any UI indication that it is the player's turn, so this is kind of the stuff that I'm going to be working on to kind of go through the process of the game. So we have attack. What happens when you press attack? So it just opens up this little box here. Well, the little box is so that you choose a direction to attack, because I do want to develop the game to where depending on the direction you choose to attack, that will either let the enemy block your attack, take damage, or you could do a critical hit. So there's going to be mechanics involved with the direction of the attack. So I want to attack with the sword swipe to the left. Now I have to select which enemy I'm going to attack. And I select the enemy. My character attacks. So now it's the enemy turn, and they are taking turns attacking me. While this happens, I am holding, since I'm running this on the PC, I'm holding spacebar, which I assigned as the block button. I don't have an animation for it. I don't have any UI indication that I am successfully blocking attacks, but you can look at the top with the HUD. The blue line represents stamina, green line represents health. Obviously, I got to put in numbers to signify, well, wording to signify what they are, numbers to signify how much you have and how much you have left. So that was basically the enemy's turns. The enemies cycled through and did their attacks. So now I'm just going to do another attack on the first enemy. And then I got, so the first enemy is stunned now. Hey, Scott, what about a gliding mechanic? So Scott is someone who worked with me on a Full Sail project for our graduation. So woohoo, go Full Sail. And a gliding mechanic is something that we had to figure out for one of our early projects. And we did a pretty darn good job. It took a lot of effort, decision making, a lot of code copying and pasting it, and then putting one extra line into that code, and then saying that we worked on it all weekend. But we eventually figured it out, so it was a lot of fun. So, you know, during my streams, I love interaction. I love chat interaction. I mean, obviously, why am I streaming this? I'm streaming this because I want some kind of interaction. So I'm, you know, like I said before, I'm more than happy to go over any questions or, you know, just have any discussions, talk about games. All for it. So the first enemy stunned, and when I attacked him, not only did he get stunned, but he also lost some health. So you can see some green health go down. So I'm just going to do another attack on that first guy since he's stunned. And while he's stunned, you notice that he's not doing any attacks. It's just cycling with the other two. So now, after one turn of him being stunned, he's recovered, hence the little stars are gone above his head, and his stamina regained, roughly about 75%. That's currently, I believe 75% is how I currently have it set up. I haven't gotten into the fun of the system mechanics in terms of, you know, building an RPG to where it's balanced. How much health do they, you know, how much stamina do they fully recover? How much health do they gain? How much damage do they take? Honestly, for this part of the prototype, I've just kind of threw some numbers out there and just kind of seeing and feeling how it is, and then I'll just kind of do some iteration as I go. But at some point, I am going to do some proper spreadsheeting to make sure that, you know, I'm developing a game that's fun with progression, as what typical RPGs are. I feel like the Diablo series is, you know, probably like the pinnacle of what you should go with progression, like Diablo 2. What's up, Keenan? How you doing? You know, I was going to ask you guys if you want me to do your handle or your name, but you guys are talking in chat with your name, so name it is. Or maybe it's the handle. So, like Diablo 3, I was playing Diablo 3 and I'm going through the game, and it just feels perfect in terms of the progression of your character. It's never boring because in the beginning of the game you're just slowly leveling up, but they just found that perfect pace that throughout the game you're slowly leveling up, you're gaining new skills, and then by the end of it, by the time you reach Diablo, the final boss, at least in the main game, you've pretty much gained all your skills at that point. So that's when you can kind of let loose and really enjoy just how much destruction your character can do. And then just kind of opens up to the difficulties later. Now you have all the skills that you need, and now you can just, you know, keep up in the difficulty. So like Diablo 3 is definitely something that when I build the mechanics of this game in terms of progression, that's really what I'm going to be trying to capture that progression. All right, anyway, I'm rambling. Still want to showcase at least one battle just to again show where I'm at with this. So this guy over here, he's got low stamina, so I'm gonna go in and attack him. He's gonna get stunned. So now notice that because my stamina is low, now I'm taking damage every time I get an attack. So that kind of stinks because now I'm pretty low on stamina. As of right now, don't really know how I can get stamina back, but there is a skill called Absorb that when I use that, and now when I block attacks, it's stealing the enemy's stamina. So that's a little mechanic I put in there so that the player could use a skill to get stamina back. And I also have it to where each stance grants a different skill, and each stance is going to do different things, give different abilities for the player that they can progress through. Again, this is a prototype. I'm not going to release it with stance 1, stance 2, stance 3. I'll actually come up with cool names for each one. So let's go to stance 2. So you see, switches to stance. It's now the enemy's turn. Let's use a skill. I'm going to use Death Strike because that sounds really cool. And use it on this guy. And not only did he get stunned with his stamina going down, but I also did damage. So let's go ahead and finish him off. So I'll take him out. Typical JRPG, just what you would expect. Health goes down. Enemy's gone. Take out this guy. Now at this point, I'm just going forward with low stamina. Me and the enemy both have no stamina left. He's still able to attack. I'm still able to attack. So obviously this is something that we're going to have to adjust as I go forward. But just wanted to showcase one battle. And that's basically all I got in the game so far. I did have other skills with the other stances, but I can always showcase that later. So what is my agenda today? My agenda today is to work on some animations. And then once I have the animations to where I think they look decent in a prototype aspect, then we're going to implement it into the game. So what I got going on right now is working on the animations for the attacks, because if you saw, it was just, they were just gliding toward each other, just kind of moving. Attack, go back, attack, go back. So I want to animate that, kind of make it look pretty cool. Doing it with the main character right now. I also just wanted to take a moment to kind of talk about something that I learned recently that I thought was pretty cool. In terms of hue shifting and color theory. Now, I already applied my colors, my different colors to this one. So let me actually upload another one. Yeah, let's try this one. All right, here we go. All right, so this was, trying to think of how long ago I made this. 4 months ago? No, way longer than that. I was still at Full Sail at that point. And we were in the middle of our final project that Scott and Keenan know all about, if they're still there. No. So it's been way longer. Probably closer to a year. I believe I've been working on this since May of 2020. I say that because I believe that's when I started doing, I started putting some, not prototypes, some concept art on Instagram. And when I say concept art, I really just mean pixel art of this character. Oh, actually, you know what? I do have a earlier, really early version of this character. Let's see if I can find that. Yeah, this was Keenan, you're awesome. You're the best. This is not the first drawing of my character. This was me just trying to draw something, anything. I was really stuck. I was like, I don't know how to move forward with this. So I'm just going to sit down and do something. And this is what I came out with. I like the sword, and the sword is kind of like how it looks now. And I use this by the symmetrical option that Aesprite has. Oh, sorry. I didn't really mention. I have it on the thumbnail. I'm using Aesprite as my pixel art editor. Just saw some videos on it. It's been the first one that I've used, but honestly, I love it. I think it pretty much has everything you need to make games with it. You can see other tons of content creators out there that have been using it and swear by it, and I am now considered one of them. Okay, so yeah, there's just a fun little, hey, I don't know how to draw. Let me just draw something. Picture right there. This might be it. Yep, there it is. There's the first iteration of my character. So basically I went from this to this to that. This is where I'm at right now. I'm pretty happy with this. Oh, and he's got a little idle animation. I really didn't like it because if you look at it at some angles, it looks like he's a Cyclops, and I really hated that. That's kind of why I just scrapped it entirely. I'm just like, I hate this. I'm just not going to move forward with it. And then I started looking at some sprites. I looked at spritersresource.com. That has a whole bunch of great sprites on there. And I looked up Lupin the Third. That's kind of what gave me, because I just thought it was a cool looking character, cool looking art style, and that's kind of what I went with this. Mostly in the face. I really liked how the art style of the face was looking, so that's kind of how I came here. Anyway, sorry, got off topic to what I was trying to talk about initially. So hue shifting. So when I was first starting, drawing colors and trying to add shading so that, it kind of gives volume to the character. I was just mostly doing turning, if I wanted to represent, a light or dark shade, I was just using the same color, on the wheel, on the spectrum, to say, okay, well, this is red. I want a darker red, so I'm just going to move it down here just because this is darker. And if I want something lighter, I'm just going to move it up. So what I learned is really what you should be doing is if you're starting from red and you're going down to dark, you actually need to be curving the color to go to a different color. So if you're starting from red, you really should be moving towards this kind of like brownish, goldish, yellow color when you're going darker. If you're starting from blue, so basically it's when you go lighter, you should be turning up. When you're going darker, you should be kind of turning right. So after learning that was mind-blowing to me. And I was like, okay, I got to retry this. I got to redo that. So this is how it came out. To me, I think it looks so much better in terms of just giving it more color. Like, this does look very drab. And it's funny because when I first made it, I was like, oh yeah, this looks pretty cool. It looks decent enough. But now that I look at it compared to the other ones, I'm like, oh yeah, this is way better. It looks way more colorful. So, made this, was happy with it. I put this in the prototype, and I got the little animation, wanted to represent him moving around and everything, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. So I built a prototype up to this point using this. Now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I want to kind of redesign this a little bit, make it look a little bit better. Kind of started from scratch. Not really in the face. With the face, I just did different shading and everything. So this is where he is at now in the first stance. Much happier with this. Will I redesign this at a later point? Probably. Who knows? But as of right now, I'm really happy with this. I think this looks much better, so that's what I'm going with. Okay. Just kind of wanted to go over that a little bit. But now we can actually get to do some work. All right. So like I said, prototyping, doing the attack animation for when the player is going to attack the enemy. So have a move towards the enemy, attack, go back. Traditional JRPG style. I thought it would be cool if rather than showing him run or, kind of move in a certain way, I thought it'd be cool if he he has a special power to where he can just dash. He can just dash, turn invisible, show up right in front of the enemy, and then swing his sword. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of prototyping. When we go to the next frames, I am taking a silhouette of the character, and I'm basically saying like, okay, yeah, this is roughly his shape. This is roughly how he's going to look. And then I just work the animation from that. What I was doing before was I was detailing every single frame to what I would want it to be in its final design. That was so hard, stressful, because again, like I said, I'm pretty new at art, but it was just really tough. And a lot of times, especially when I start getting into the actual, this is his idle stance. Pretty easy just to kind of mess with it at this point. It's already been built. But now that I'm going to be starting to work with attack animations, that means moving his arms, swinging the sword. That's when 2 weekends ago, I started it, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. I literally froze and couldn't do anything, and I'm like, I do not know how to move forward with this. So I saw a content creator. I'm actually going to put his channel in the chat. Just give him a shout out, because it was really from watching him, that I was able to learn. Adam Eunice, his channel is called Indie Tales. He does, he's kind of doing the same thing that I'm doing. You can definitely say there's some inspiration there. He's making a game. He's been working on a game for about 4 years. He's also where I learned about the hue shifting, because he has a little thing on that. So it's basically from watching him that I then got the inspiration to say, okay, let me take this another way. Rather than trying to detail every single frame, just do it as silhouettes. And that's exactly what he says in one of his channels, or one of his videos. So that way, yes, he does. So that way I can do this, and I can be like, okay, I'm happy with this. And it really doesn't take long to do this in terms of a silhouette. And I'll work on some later. It's like, it just makes it so much easier to be like, okay, now I can play it. Now I can look at it and be like, okay, I really like this. So I can worry about detailing later. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead, today I'm going to go ahead and put this into Unreal. It's going to be this prototype silhouette. I don't care, because I just want to make sure that it looks good in the actual game engine, that I can do this, looks good, okay, cool. And I'm going to go through all my stances, all my attacks, to make sure that I'm happy with all those. Because honestly, like the final detail part, building... let me get that back. I was kind of stubborn, and I did kind of like do a final detail of this. I did silhouette, although it's a little bit harder to do a silhouette when it's just idle and they're not moving too much, because a lot of the movement is mostly like, you need the shading, like his breathing that he's doing. You can't really show that in a silhouette unless you like do some shading with the silhouette. But if you're gonna do shading with the silhouette, then you might as well work on the final design for it. So I was kind of stubborn. I did kind of do this as a final detail, or did a detail through each frame, just because I really liked it and I wanted to capture it and do it at that moment. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. So I did that. Sorry, what I was gonna say is, doing like the final detail, it's very relaxing. It's very calming. It's not as stressful as when you are trying to first come up with the animation, when you're first trying to do it. At least for me, it's stressful for me. Like I said, I froze when I was trying to figure out like how to make his arms move and look correct when he's slashing. So that's why I decided I'm going to move forward with just doing these silhouettes, put them into the game engine, worry about detailing later. And plus, in that way, in case I want to change anything, well, I don't have to change a whole final design. All I got to change is silhouette. All right, so that one's done. So now we have, so he's from his position, he dashes, he's moving towards the enemy. So that was just the animation for him to move towards the enemy. Now I have it to where he's actually moving to the enemy. So basically have the animation right here. Comes in. He's got, see, here's what I'm talking about with the silhouettes and making his arms move and being like, okay, how's this going to work? So with this, I'm actually having him do like a kind of like a turn with the sword. Not really easy to see with the silhouette, but at the very least, I can look at this and say, I'm pretty happy. The sword slash took forever for me to figure out too. I'm like, I am not enjoying what I'm doing, but now I kind of got it to where I'm pretty happy with it. Again, looking at references are what helped me get to this point. So I am going to put in a mechanic that after a attack, the player can choose to do a follow-up attack. So that's what's happening here. So now he's swinging the sword to the left, and then he swings the sword to the right, and then he dashes back to his original position. So I am calling this attack block because what I'm doing here is if the enemy blocks, then I wanted to create block particle effects. So that is what these white sparks are. That's basically the player, the enemy blocking. And also I got the little, dust particle effects when they show up. All right, so now what I'm going to be building is the hit effect when the player is actually successful hitting the enemy. So I'm actually just going to take the block, call it hit, because really the only thing I'm going to be changing is the particle effects. And also I have a non-follow-up version, because like I said, this is when the player does a follow-up. So let me pull up the follow-up version, the non-follow-up version. So there you go. Doesn't do a follow-up, just attacks once, goes back. What's the reason for the follow-up versus the follow-up? Well, I want to make it to where when the player attacks, they kind of just have that frame. It's really 3 frames, but they kind of have those frames to decide, do I want to do a follow-up? If the enemy blocks, then they're going to be losing stamina with the follow-up. But if it hits, then they're going to do extra damage. So kind of wanted to have that as like a mechanic where the player's got to kind of think about, did I see that they blocked? Did I see that they attacked? At least that's my concept. That's my idea. It's my concept. Will it actually work? We'll see what happens. So again, doing it as silhouettes so that when I put it into the game and when I run it in the game, does it work? Do I think it looks good? All right, so this is still block. So we're going to change this to hit. So yep, 36 minutes in, introductions, talking. Now I'm actually going to start working. For those that don't know about the onion skin with Aesprite, you basically click this icon right here. You can basically tell it to do forward frames or backwards frames. I usually do the backwards frames, and I tell it to go in front of the sprite, so that way when you're moving towards the frame, like if I'm on frame 7, I can see the particles that were on frame 6. So like when I was designing this, you know, here's frame 5, here's where the particle effects are. Now when I go to frame 6, just kind of move them slightly up a little bit, so that way they have a fading away effect. Which is basically what I'm going to be doing now, but instead of with particles of block, now we're going to do hit. So what do I want to do with hit? Hit, I'm thinking of like a slash. I was watching clips on BlazBlue. It's a fighting game. I played it a lot, love it. So I was looking at some clips of that last night. Just kind of looking like how that looks when there's like an attack. So it's kind of like just like an orange-red streak that appears. So that's what I'm going to try to replicate. Since it's just going to be a silhouette version of the particle, I'm just going to stick with these light colors here and not worry about any shading. So I think I'm going to start with like a little square. Just do a little design like this. Maybe move it down to like here. So this red bar represents where the enemy is going to be. So that way I kind of have a reference to when I'm doing my attack, you know, where's the placement of the enemy going to be. So he'll be roughly right here. Another tip I learned from Adam, the content creator that I put on the chat earlier, is that he puts his a sprite reference, you know, in the background, which I have right here, and I have it set to low opacity, so that way, you know, it can just kind of exist in the background. So that way, when I'm drawing my silhouette, I can keep him roughly the size he needs to be, you know, so that way I'm not overestimating, I'm not underestimating. I see the reference back there, so I know, okay, his head's going to be right here, his arms are going to be roughly about this size, his legs are going to be right there, so that way I can do the attack right there. Since this is the first frame, I'm thinking small, big, slash, and then fade. And now that I'm kind of doing it that way, I might do that with the blocking particles. But although I feel like with blocking, it can be big and then kind of fade away. Maybe it can with the slash too, but I'll just kind of see how this looks. So first frame, that's the first frame of attack. Relatively small. So now this is where I can do the onion skin and see, okay, this is where it was before. So now, a little bit bigger. I want to kind of like draw something in the directions of the slash. So he's so this is up. So he started from here and he moved upward. So kind of just like a big, nice cut right there. And I was kind of thinking about doing some little arcs. But I only left myself with 3 frames to work with, because 1, 2, 3, and that's basically the end. Now, I could add more. Ultimately, with games, when you hit an enemy, you want to represent that there's some weight behind that hit. So normally that's like a screen shake or a slight pause. Guilty Gear Strive just came out. It's a great fighting game. That's probably the best example of when you land a counter hit on an enemy, there's like a big weight in terms of how it damaged the person that you hit. And when I say weight, I mean WEIGHT, like you're heavy, you put, there's some weight behind the attack. So, I mean, I'm doing 3 frames with this, but I may change that just to kind of add more of that weight to it. I like that. It's not exactly how I was kind of thinking it, but I do like it. And then I can just kind of have it fade out a little bit. Let's make that move more. And sorry, I will try to be talking as I'm working, but I may be quiet a couple of times. But I'll definitely be trying to say out my thoughts about what I'm doing. So this is just going to be just kind of fading away. I like it. It's not too bad. I'm definitely a big fan of gore and blood. Like, Mortal Kombat was like my favorite game growing up as a kid, and part of that was because of all the blood that would shoot out. So honestly, I can just add some blood to that. And I'm going to do it on a different layer. Just so that if I ever have to make changes, I can do that on there. We'll go with traditional red for the prototype. I'm kind of thinking like a blood spray, kind of like back. Yeah, something like that. Maybe show more movement. Not too bad. I'm pretty happy with it. Yep. And like I said, it's like just something to put in there, kind of see how it looks. And if I'm not happy with it down the road, go back and design it. And when I'm designing it or doing the final designs, then I can make it look even better than it does. I'm also more than happy to take feedback. So at any point in the chat, if anybody wants to say, that looks kind of stupid, or I think you're missing something in terms of how it should look, I am more than happy to receive that feedback. Because I am definitely in a learning process with this. So, you know, anybody can feel free to let me know. But I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm definitely a product of where I make an animation and I look at it and I keep letting it play. And it's like, you know, if I really like it, I want to keep watching it. And it's like, oh, yeah, that looks pretty cool. So, at least for me, I think that's a success. So I'm gonna go ahead and I think we're gonna run with that, and we can move on to the follow-up. So again, this is where it does additional attacks, and just gonna go ahead and replace these block particles. And since I already have my stuff over here, I'm just going to put the same ones in. Naming conventions, I just put whatever. I don't really have a best practice. So if anyone feels that should be different naming convention, just let me know. So with the follow-up, I did use 4 frames for this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Although honestly, I could still have him do the follow-up while this is still fading. And honestly, I think that would look pretty cool still. So, first frame right there. So, yep. I think it's fine to kind of let that still be out there while he takes his next swing. So we can go ahead and take those out. So, starting point. Oh, I take that back. No, I don't take that back. I just need to add that to this one right here. So, because that's the first frame of the follow-up attack. You still got the blood from right here, but he's already gotten a second attack, so I just have that right here. I think that's fine. So, like this, I had a kind of a down-up diagonal, but this is attacking from his right to his left. So now I'm just going to kind of do a slash like this. Yeah, last time I made that a little bit heavier. Kind of readjust that a little bit. Yeah, I think that's roughly about the same size. And now I'm going to add more blood spurts to that second hit. Oh, not using the same color. And now just doing the fade. How did I do that fade last time? Yeah, just kind of break off, kind of like that. Yep. The only thing with the onion skin is that sometimes it's a little hard to see. And then blood. And at this point, I messed up. For some reason, I overwrote the little startup of the particle effect. So, yeah, I could tell that something was off because I was done before the second slash happened. So, okay. Darn it. Try that again. Copy that. First slash. In there. There we go. Gotta erase this. Essentially start over. Okay. Now I can redo that. And get the slash representing left to right, and kind of went overboard there. I am using my mouse to do the pixel art. I am one of those. I'm sure that's offensive to somebody. That's why I was looking confusing. I was doing the onion skin of the backwards and forward frame when really I just wanted the backwards frame. There we go. Okay. So right here, start of the blood, because that's when he really gets cut. Now here, don't need these anymore. Now we need second phase of the blood. Second phase of the slash, which is just doing a little fade away. And then like the other attack, so he starts his second follow-up. I guess let me go ahead and see how that looks so far. Not too bad. I'm good with it. I don't hate it. Usually I can tell if I just hate it right away. But I am pretty good with that. And just a little bit of the fade away there. Maybe push that a little bit more. Make it look like it's moving. And like I said, again, I might be the frames I'm doing might not be enough. I might need to add more frames, but we'll see how we do with this for now. All right, so now we are starting the second follow-up, and this is so moving from left to right. So now I'm going to take that little starter effect. That's basically what that is. Kind of like how it starts it right there. So then I can move on to starting that right there. Kind of the same motion as that, but if I do it like this, I think it kind of signifies the left to right. Starter, second, okay. It's a little big, a little too wide. And blood. Now, since this is the same color as my, or close to the same color as my prototype marker, it might be a little hard, but that's okay. It's just a prototype. One, two, three. And 4. A little bit less, a little bit less. All right. Now we can kind of see how it comes out. Yep, I do not hate it. I think that looks decent to roll with. All right. So now I have what I need to put this in the Unreal Engine. Just making sure I'm not forgetting anything. Okay. All right, so how do we get this over to the Unreal Engine? Well, gotta set it as a texture. Got my sprite sheets here. You'll see Minto as the name of these files. That's the name of the character. So like right now I have Minto S1 for stance up, attack up. So this is how it currently looks, but this is where I ultimately was just like, I don't like it. I went forward with it just because I had something. This was like really early in doing an attack animation. And again, this is when I was doing detail, detail, detail every frame. So started with, oh, that's right. Moving around on this thing is not the best at all. I can't move it around or anything. I can just zoom in. But anyway, didn't do silhouettes, did frame, 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 fully colored, fully detailed, to move forward with it. Terrible process, didn't like it at all. Ended up with it, just kind of looked okay. Although this was also like, I really didn't look at enough references to be like, okay, how should a slash look? How should an attack look? Looked okay, but I was just like, I don't want this to be my final product for what I'm building. Okay, so we got it. We got these textures. Sorry, I had a reason for looking at that, because I am looking at that this is a sprite sheet that has 5 columns and 3 rows. So when I import this, it's going to have a different file name, so I don't think it's going to work anyway. But if I import it with the same column and row length for the sprite sheet, it should just automatically update. And so that way you don't have to go through the whole process of reconfiguring the sprites to make sure that they fit accurately and everything. Although for the purpose of the stream, I should do that for you guys anyway. So, because hey, we're all here to learn. That's the idea. That's the reason why I'm doing this. All right. So this is no follow-up. This is follow-up. I don't need the background anymore. And I also need my beginning dash. So it was going to have to be different anyway because I did not have this initial dash animation as part of the attack. So now I have 2 separate sprite sheets I'm going to be doing. The good news with this attack animation, or this dash animation, is that it's universal for all of the attacks in the stance 1. So I only have to use this 1 dash for each attack that I'm doing. And right now I have 4 attacks for each stance. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and export that. Export that as a sprite sheet. So this can be, since it's the first time I'm uploading it, it can be however I want. If I want to do it by rows, columns. But I need to be thinking, since these are silhouettes, this is not the final product at all. So I need to be thinking, okay, well, if I go back to do the final design, how, am I going to be able to easily make it to where I can just fit in what I already have in Unreal so that it can just kind of automatically update. Unfortunately, I don't think that's possible because it's dependent on your frame count. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames, it looks like. Of course, I can just close that. See that? 7 frames. And when you're doing the final design, I may decide I want to add an extra frame. Right now I got 1, 2, 3 for his dash, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the dust particles. I may change that in the final product. I may want to add more. The more frames you add, the more subtle movement you do, I think overall the smoother things look. So that's definitely important. Sorry, got distracted. Terrible. Not a good job. Not a good job, streamer. So, anyway, I guess I'm just going to go ahead and do this as columns with some rows. So this is where you might say, well, there must be a preference. There must be a reason why they offer it with rows and columns. That there must be some ease of use for each one. What's going on, Brett? How you doing? My best buddy, Brett. So anyway, there must be an ease of use from saying I want to do it as rows or columns. Yeah, I don't know what that ease of use is, because honestly, this is really my first time just doing it from building my game. So maybe it's a preference thing, or maybe there is a difference in terms of that. I wish I knew the answer. If anyone does know the answer, just let me know. Sure you were, Amy. But if you really were, then, you know, I appreciate that. Make a decision. It's only 7 frames. I'm just going to do it as a row. What's the difference between horizontal strip and by rows? Because you can say by the number of columns. Ha. Like that. Okay, so I'm going to say horizontal strip. All right, so I got my sprite sheet. Woo! Sprite sheet. Oh, there's a little GIF I made. All right, sorry, back to Unreal. So basically, I have structured this to say, here's my artwork, here's my textures. I do have some cleanup to do, but from what I am working on, or from what I am trying to just kind of take it from where I left off, is Minto, and put in the sprite sheet. So I'm going to assume that people watching this have never done anything with Unreal before, and I was definitely there at one point, so that was definitely what I am. It was definitely something that I had to learn, and I was looking up videos, and it was tough to find videos of Unreal for 2D games and 2D sprites. Luckily, there were some out there, so I was able to learn some things. So for one thing, when you load it in, it's going to... I don't know exactly what it does. It puts, I guess, some kind of filter. I think that's what some people have said, that it's like an automatic filter that it puts in. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to apply Paper 2D texture settings. So that way it basically doesn't warp or change anything from what you designed in Aesprite. So basically, I just want to make sure that whatever dimensions and setup I have built here, by applying that Paper 2D settings, it's going to do that for me. Another thing that you have to do is when you extract it, there's an option for auto, which, as you can see, it basically recognizes, hey, I see pixel data here. So I'm going to close off everything with the canvas size, and I'm going to treat that as what you need to extract, which is cool, but I found the problem with that, especially when doing what I'm doing, where the player is in a certain stance and everything they do kind of goes back and forth from that stance. You know, they stay in that, when they're idle, stays in that stance. When he attacks, he moves in that stance. And what I found is, depending on the placement of the character and what he's doing, when he's swinging his sword, that's going to change the dimensions of this sprite. And what happens is the center pivot for what you're using for your image is now going to be different. Like, let's say for this, it's 50-50 is the center. And then, but when he's doing an attack, the sword is going to increase the length. Well, now the center pivot's going to be 70-50. So now that means that, and the default is that it does center pivot. So that means that when the game is trying to track what pivot it is, and that's how it knows like what to do with the sprite, with the game object. It's the game object for the game. It's going to put it from that 50-50 to 70-50. So you're going to see a weird jump. It's not going to look smooth in the player's attack. So what I found is, and honestly I can't remember if I learned this from anywhere or if I just luckily picked it up. I'm pretty sure I found somewhere from it. If you go to Aesprite and you look up your canvas size, it's 150 by 150. That's basically this entire canvas. So now with that, I'm now able to go here, turn off auto, tell it to do 150 to 150. So that way it's doing the right canvas size, it's setting the right center pivot. When the animation runs, it'll run smoothly. And that whole center pivot thing, that'll even happen from frame to frame. So it's not just like changing animations from idle to attack. It could even be just this single frame of single animation of 7 frames. It could be center pivot's 50-50 here. Now the center pivot is 50-40 here. So even like in between the same animation, he's going to be jumping around and looking weird. So that's what I found of how to fix that, how to set that up. Pros and cons. Well, now that means that anytime I'm doing an animation for this stance with this character, I have to basically work with this canvas, because now if I'm doing another animation and I want to increase the canvas size, well, now I might have to go back and adjust the canvas size on the other ones to make sure that they're universal, because if they're different, that's going to be a lot of extra work to make sure that my center pivot's going to be the same. Yes, you can adjust the pivot so that's not center pivot. I've tried. It didn't really turn out good. It was kind of getting ugly, so I have found this to be the easiest. Now, I may regret that later, like I said, because I may be doing something where I need to increase the canvas size, and then now I'm kind of stuck. Now you may be saying, well, I noticed the canvas size for this is bigger. So I am justifying that in my head. We're going to find out when I implemented it tonight. But because the character's moving, they're not standing still in this animation, it should be fine, because then I can just make sure that I'm placing the character where they need to be based on where they went. It might be more work. It might not go as smooth as I think, but I basically thought it in my head and said, that should work. We'll find out. Okay, so put in the texture, which is basically the sprite sheet. I like how I was calling them textures just because I named my folder textures. I guess you can call it whatever you want. I'm calling them a texture, but basically it's a sprite sheet. So you put in the sprite sheet, you tell it the right canvas size to extract the sprites. So now you got your sprites, frame by frame. But you want it to be an animation. You don't want, okay, I got my sprites. How do I turn it into an animation? So 2D animation in Unreal is a flipbook. It's called Paper Flipbook. So all you do is you take your animation, you take your frames, that's what I meant to say, you highlight them, and you create flipbook. Let me make sure the naming convention is what I want it to be. See, it's not what I want it to be. Stance 1. I just need to put FB in the front to represent flipbook. There you go. Alright, another thing with Unreal animation. I'll just let you look at the animation in Unreal. Now let me go to Aesprite and play that same animation. It's a little bit slower in Aesprite. Goes a lot faster in Unreal. A little bit too fast. So that's because Unreal, and you guys won't be able to see this because I got this in the way. Unreal, I'm assuming it's a default setting. I haven't really found anything to say or state otherwise. I did try changing, because in Aesprite, you can change how fast these animation plays. So like right now, default is 100 milliseconds. I believe to kind of get it close to what Unreal is currently doing, I set it to 50. So you get that a little bit faster. 50 looks a little bit too fast. Well, this is saying in milliseconds. Unreal is saying frames per second. So I'm sure there's math there that can figure that out, but I don't have that math with me, and I don't feel like calculating it. My point is, I have tried adjusting these when I import them, and they still come at 15 frames per second. So I feel like regardless of what you do in Aesprite, it's going to set the default to 15 frames per second. But again, I could be wrong. So I feel that 15 frames per second is a little fast. I believe 10 pretty much matches it to what is in Aesprite. So what I have been able to deduce is 10 frames per second appears to be the same as 100 milliseconds per second. So there's a little inverted math to try and figure out what gets you to the 15 frame per second that Unreal's doing. What's the difference between 10 to 15? Why am I setting it to 10? Honestly, just an eye test. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I kind of liked how it looked in Aesprite. Didn't seem too slow or too fast. Maybe ultimately it does need to be faster at some point, but at least to me it makes sense. But then again, this is like when I was talking about color theory earlier, where, you know, before when I made an animation, you know, this color scheme looked fine to me. I was kind of like, yeah, I like this color scheme. I think it looks good. But not until I actually learned about hue shifting that I'm like, oh, this looks way better. So I was totally wrong about this. This looks drab and dreary. This looks much more colorful. And I should also say that I was going for colorful. There's definitely some games that are purposely doing drab and dreary, but that's not what I'm going for. So once I actually started seeing more color, that's why I'm like, oh, this looks so much better. So this whole time when I was saying this looks so much better, it looks so much better to me. It could look worse to some people because it's too colorful. Anyway. Okay, so back to here. I think 10 frames per second, basically what it was at in Aesprite, looks correct. So that's what I'm going to go with. And there we go. We have an animation. So now I got to set up getting the animation to play when it needs to. And I am also going to organize where the sprites need to go. Because I am big on organization, so I want to make sure that sprites are where they need to be so that I know where they're at. So here is my old attack up, and we're going to have to get rid of that. And here's my flip books. So hey, here's all the animations I got for my character right now. Cool. Attack up, stance 1. There it is. And see, I was running this at 15 frames per second. And when I was doing this, I added in some extra frames to kind of slow it down. I didn't realize at the time that if I put it to 10, it will pretty much get it to how Aesprite has it. So I need to delete this. But if you notice, when I delete this, it's going to say, so now I'm going to get into some Unreal stuff. When you delete this, it's going to say, hey, there's references in this memory with this asset that you're about to delete, which is basically telling you, hey, you're still using this that you're trying to delete. Now, of course, it gives you a nice message saying, oh, there was something saying if you do force delete, that's an awful thing to do. I mean, sometimes you have to force delete. So, but anyway, this is telling me, hey, this is still showing up somewhere. So where this is showing up is in a blueprint structure. Blueprint structure, the best way I can explain it, it's basically just kind of like, so data tables are kind of like a spreadsheet that Unreal has, like an in-house spreadsheet, which I'll kind of show that later as well. And obviously on this game development journey, we'll be going over that. So I saw someone use this structure blueprint to basically create 2D animation state machine, because Unreal allows you to do a state machine with 3D models. What's a state machine? Basically how you control to say the character needs to be idle right now. Okay, now the character needs to move. And what is the states of that movement? They're idle, they start running, they're running, they go back to mid run, and then they're back to idle. When they jump, they're from idle, jump, they're in the air, they're going back down, back to idle. That's basically an animation state machine. So Unreal offers that for 3D models. They do not offer that for paper 2D. So that was kind of a struggle, but luckily I saw someone's video. I do not have them. Yeah, I saw it like a year ago, unfortunately, so I don't have their channel to shout out. But basically, he showed that you can do a state machine with 2D art using structures. So basically, I can say these are basically my states up here. To stance, in stance, attack up, attack down, attack left, attack right. And then with that, because I have multiple stances I'm doing, 4, I can say, so for my 2 stance, which is basically I'm saying, you know, starting the fight when he goes to the stance, I can say, so 0 index is going to be 1, 1 index is going to be 2, so on and so forth. So I have my, I have my 4 different stances held in one structure. So it makes it a lot easier in the blueprint to kind of structure it that way. And then I'll have to show that in the blueprint, and that's a lot of fun. That's kind of when it gets a little like, you really got a head scratch and think, okay, so yeah, they're there. How do I represent that in the actual game? So we got my stance attack up right here. This is what we're going to be changing. We're also going to add a new state, and that state is going to be the beginning dash towards the enemy. So I'll actually add that right now. Attack dash, I think that's good. So this is a variable. It can be whatever Unreal variable you want it to be. If anyone has any questions, I can go over Unreal variables, at least to the best of my knowledge. But this is going to be a paper flip book, because I'm basically saying, hey, this is a variable. This variable is going to be a paper flip book. And I need this paper flip book to be an array, so that way I can do the different stances for each one. And just for organizing, I think that works. Attack up, dash down, left, right, dash. Okay, cool. So now that's going to be right here. And I'm going to add my 4 array elements. And I am going to add the attack dash flipbook that I just added. So that is now in there. And I just realized that I'm going to have to do hit and block for each one. Yep. Because I was thinking, oh, you know what? I meant to update this. My bad. Well, I'm definitely still prototyping. And I should be specific and say 2D. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. Alright, so that's what I'm working on right now. 2D Unreal animation. Alright, so as I was saying earlier, here's the previous attack up that I was using. I don't want it anymore, so I'm going to clear it. It's gone. And the blueprint that was accessing that is my Battle Minto and Game Minto. I can get into that at some point, but for the purposes of tonight's stream, I'll just kind of move on. Unless anyone has any specific questions, I'll be happy to go into it. And I'm also assuming people have seen Unreal. I feel like there's enough stuff about blueprints with Unreal that I don't really have to go into too much detail with it. That's like the easiest thing to look up and find tutorials on, just directly from Unreal's channel. That's how I started learning Unreal. I just went to their YouTube channel and watched their instruction videos, and that's basically how I started learning it. And that was even before I went to Full Sail. So the reason why I'm going in here is because I saw that there was a little asterisk when I made that change to the removing the animation. So basically that was saying that it was referencing that animation at some point. So this is basically just kind of like refreshing the blueprint. And this is basically the 2D state machine for animations. So I will break this down once I take out the other one and start adding in the new one. I'll break that down. This was a fun process to think up. But it worked so well in the long run that it was totally worth doing. Alright, so here it is. So here's the message I was talking about. Some of the assets being deleted are still referenced. delete the asset anyway, but referencers may not work correctly anymore. Use as a last resort. Let me try save all. It's being referenced in a paper flip book. No, sorry, that's the class. 2 memory references. Let me just scan my blueprints. So I'm just going to delete it anyway. And I'm sure that's what most people do. But only use it as a last resort. Alright, so old animation flipbook is gone. Let's go grab our new one. That's right here. I just need to drop that there. There it is. Oh, that's the dash, but that's okay. I still got the other one still. I'll go ahead and do that once I'm done moving these. So these are the sprites, because remember, this is just the flip book. The sprite sheet. This is just a sprite sheet. It's just a picture image. Doesn't do anything. These are the actual sprites. So I have a sprite folder. I have Mento the character, and I have stance 1. So I actually need to create a new folder. Called attack dash, because that's basically what I'm calling this these sprites. And put that in the attack dash folder. Alright, so now I got the flipbook in there. There we go. Cool. Alright, let's get the new attack up. And make sure that's still at 100. It is. It still wants me to save it anyway. Okay, so this is no follow-up. Sprite sheet. So this one's a little bit more frames, so I am going to put this in columns. I think a column of 4 works. And I just noticed I still have my little reference image, little ghost Mento still there, so I need to take that off. There we go. Okay, now I can do the sprite sheet. Ghost Mento is not there anymore. And 4 columns. All right, let's go back to Unreal. And let's get my sprite sheet. Let's go to textures. So put it in there, apply paper 2D settings. I have to look at the canvas size. This is, I could have swore I put that to 200, 199 to 150. So when I extract it, I'm going to say grid. Oh, see, here's some good examples of what the auto does. See, like, it's literally creating little sprites from the animation, like the dust particles. They are going to become their own sprites. They're not going to be attached to this frame. So that's one reason why you just seems like auto doesn't seem to be a good idea. I don't really know how you can set that up to where it is a good idea. All right, 199 to 150. So there you go. Those are all in there. And create the flipbook. FB for flipbook. Yes, I know it says FU. It's for follow-up. I know. But why not? I could have called it 69. Kind of looks cool in that speed. The silhouette. So, you know, I basically did what I will call the primary motion. You know, he's doing the sword slash, but there's a lot of like when the slash, you know, you see the particle effects going, but the silhouette's standing still. There's no movement. That's what I would consider secondary motion. So that is like his scarf will be moving, his clothes will slightly move. You know, that's the kind of stuff that when I put that in there, I kind of feel like, oh, thank you, Brett. I kind of feel like the animation will look better in terms of this speed. It'll at least make more sense rather than, because like I feel like because there's a lot of those frames where it just kind of stands still, it kind of looks slower than what it will look like in the final product. That's what I'm going with anyway. Excuse me one moment. I think my cat wants back in. And I'm also going to get some water. Should only take me a couple minutes. I'm back. Yes, I know, amateur streamer hour. There's no break overlay, or we'll be back soon, so that way when other people join in, they'll know that it's not just an empty stream. I know. I'm still learning. Haven't built that yet. Alright, cool. Alright, tech up. No FU. I'm just gonna say no. I'm just gonna say FU instead of follow up now. I did notice that this is really my first time putting this in on this canvas size. And I noticed that the starting size is different, but that's the same with all these, so it should be fine. And I'm talking about how like you can see how big he is on the preview, but it looks much smaller. But when I run in the game, it looks fine, so I'm not going to be worried about that. Okay, you can go away. Alright, cool. Sorry. Back to textures, flipbooks. Here's my flipbooks. That goes there. And this goes to the new attack up. And I deleted the flipbook, but I did not delete the sprites. So this is what I was trying to achieve earlier with the flipbook, where there's no force delete. It sees that there's nothing else referencing it, so it's okay to delete them. That's what I was trying to achieve, but there was something out there. I didn't know where it was, but I'm pretty sure it didn't break anything. Pretty sure. Okay, so now that's in there. I'll go ahead and save. Let's go ahead and do the last one. Okay. Sprite sheet. This time it saved my settings. 4 columns, 4 rows. I think that's good. Sprite sheet. This is with the FU. Not no FU. Pretty sure it's the same Kansas size. 199. Yep. Could swore I said to 100, but apparently not. 200. Could swore I said to 200. Yeah, did not need a 1 there. The other one might have been named incorrectly. I don't know. The more I see it in 15 frames per second, the more I think that looks pretty nice. But again, that's without the secondary motion, so I'll stop that. All right, flipbook here, implementing here. Well, if you guys wanted me to start talking about blueprints, you're in luck. Tomorrow. No, I'll do it tonight. FU. No FU. Do I want to make it its own folder? I do. There we go. Flipbooks. All right. So we got our dash. We got our FU. We got our no FU. My cat's jumping around. All right, let's see. All right, so now I got to add it to the structure, because the structure is what's going to speak to the character blueprint. So I have attack up. And I wanted to say block or not block. So the enemy either blocks it or they get hit. But now I'm thinking I also have to say with follow-up and with not follow-up. So that would mean I would need to add 3 more. And I think that's fine. I think it's unavoidable. Block. No. FU. And it's going to be that for every stance that's attacking up. So stance 1, stance 2, stance 3, stance 4 is all going to be doing that. So that's perfectly fine. Or I don't think that's too cumbersome. Attack, block, FU. And so now I need to say, instead of block, hit. Alright, so attack up, block, no follow-up, block with follow-up, hit, no follow-up, hit with follow-up. And I'm going to structure them all together in the attack ups. So now that means that they will be down here. 4 elements for each because I have 4 stances. I got attack dash on there, so now I'm going to be doing and just putting in the flip book, the appropriate flip book. I only put in hit, I didn't even put in block. Let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so attack up, hit, no follow up, attack, hit up, follow up. So I apologize. I am not done importing sprite sheets. Oh, ignore that. I forgot my blocks. Yep, so there's block, no follow-up, block with follow-up. All right, so the same thing. In the words of Zed from Men in Black, damn exciting stuff. Block, follow up. Oh, what was the Kansas size for these? $199 to $150, so I'm pretty sure the other one was $199 to $150. Yep. Okie dokie. There we go. 199, 150, all extracted. Flip book. FB. There we go. You go here. You guys, this is follow-up. So you will go in the FU folder. I just realized I made an FU folder. I could have called it 69. $420.69. All right. Block, no follow-up. Flipbook, go here. Sprites, you do not go in the FU folder. Sorry about that. I forgot about those. I forgot about the block versus the hit. So those are extra sprites. And I may have said this earlier, and you may be wondering, why don't you just do the same animation, but just throw in different particles, depending on what you want to have happen. I don't think that will be easier. I feel like that's going to be the same. Maybe, maybe not. We'll find out. So back to our animation structure. And, all right, now we got tack up, no block, no follow-up. That's that one right there. Forgot to change the speed of the animation. Attack, block, follow-up, block, follow-up. There we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. All right. Those are in there now. So, to my flip books. Frames per second. All right. Okay, so now I have everything I need in the structure. All right, have a good night, Keenan. Thanks for joining, man. Hope to see you on the next one. Keep in touch, which I know we will. I don't remember if I mentioned this when I first started talking about the structs. You may notice that these are blank. That's because I did not create the animations for these yet. So like for attack right, I have the stance 1 attack animation for attack right, but I do not have them for that. So currently what happens in the game when the player, if you're in stance 2 and you say attack right, the player just moves up to the enemy, damage happens, but there's no animation and he just moves back. Just in case you were wondering, because I don't remember if I mentioned that earlier. Okay, so now that I have the animation structs for our new animations, our new flip books, now I am going to talk about how that state machine works for 2D sprites. At least how I have set it up. You know, if anybody wants to leave a comment about an easier way, I'm totally down to learn. This is just what I have gotten so far. So I made an event called Update Animation. And from looking at that, I just realized I'm going to have to update the enumerations as well. Let's start there. And I really should have started there with the struct, because really structures kind of correspond with your enumeration. What's an enumeration? It's basically a list of things. So here we go, we got our attack up. So now I'm going to change that to block. I don't remember what was first on the structure, but for now. Block FU. I may change that at some point. Block no FU. I think I'll just go with attack block 69 and no 69. I know, dumb joke. I've said it many times now. Stop saying it. Attack hit up, no FU. It's never funny when you laugh at your own jokes. It's awful. Boom, boom, boom. Structure, structure, structure. So the blueprint on the character was corresponding to this enumeration list. So when I update this, it's going to be updated on that. Let me structure it the same in the structure, because I'm organized. I have a weird organization obsession. See, block no FU, block FU. So no FU, FU, hit no, hit yes. There you go. They match. Okay. So now these are updated. So what are we doing here? Okay. So now I can start, I think, until I forget something else. I'm just kind of going with the flow. So I made an event called Update Animation. The purpose of this event is so that I'm saying at any point in the game flow, I want to update this character's animation. And this is the same structure of how I'm going to be doing like every character. In this example, this is the player character. So update animation. What does that do? That takes in an enumeration state. So this enumeration variable that I'm setting with this character correlates to this enumeration list. So now that means this character has this variable. So from the time that this character is created in the game, it will have these, it has this enumeration list in that character. So cool. Now that means that I can take what I'm going to be setting, do what's called a switch, which is basically now saying, I have all my enumeration list, and I want you to do something based on what we are switching to. I guess that's why it's called a switch. I just realized that. I know, bad pause. So basically we can control to say, okay, if we are switching to idle, then we need to set the flipbook to idle, and so on and so forth. So now we have attack up block, no follow-up, with follow-up, hit, no follow-up, hit with follow-up. So we're going to attach these to the same node here. So regardless, I guess ultimately, regardless of which path you're taking, you're going to be going to the set flipbook. But it's structuring it in the code of Unreal Engine. You know, it's taking that path to know that that's where it needs to go. Okay, cool. So you're setting a new flipbook. What flipbook is it being set to? So that's where you have another node right here to say, well, this is going to be the flipbook. Target is always going to be what is the blueprint actor or character or object that you were talking to. Obviously, you can do animations, flipbooks for any object. If you wanted a door to open in 2D, if you wanted a car to move in 2D or animate. That's why the target is there, so you can be pretty specific. And in this case, it's going to be doing a sprite. So maybe that's just because it's a sprite. Anyway, it's going to be a new flipbook. So we take that and we do what's called a select. So the select is basically saying, you know, I have all these flipbooks that is in animation state. Sorry, I was trying to remember how it got this information. It got this information because we're actually doing a select off that enumerator. So remember this little bad boy right here that produces this list? That's the same thing, this. And that's saying, okay, now I want to select an actual flipbook from this enumeration list. How do we get that? Well, we go to our structure. So our variable Minto stance structure is doing a variable type of struct Minto animation, which is how this comes in. Because now we have this built, and we say, hey, this is the structure of the character's animation. All right, cool. So let's do a break structure. I think that's unique to structures. It's kind of like doing a switch, I think, just with a structure. So now we are accessing that structure, and we are accessing that array. I guess I should give a disclaimer that I am literally describing this and translating it as I just feel that it works. I don't have the official knowledge or the official documentation review to confirm or deny what I'm saying. So I apologize if what I'm saying is completely and utterly wrong. But I'm just explaining it that I hope in a way that makes sense to other people that are watching this. And I'm sorry if it's not. So anyway, you get the structure. We built the structure in the game. So now we can break it, and that way we can access what's in that structure. We have all these arrays. We have all these arrays of these flipbooks that are in this structure. So now we have access to all of them. So because we have access to this flipbook, these flipbooks in this structure, we can now tell it to say, hey, based on what stance you're in, so this is acting as the index in the array. This is called, when the game starts, defaults to 0. And that's just because of how I set it up. Obviously, when the game is going on, the player can change the stance to whatever. Depending on what stance they're in, get that index. So if they're in stance 1, get the index of that stance, and now set this flipbook to that, grab that flipbook, select it, and then set it as the flipbook that the character needs to be in. So this is basically the state machine for 2D animation. Cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and add our new ones. And it's going to be the same process that we pretty much did for each other one. So our new arrays are this one, this one, this one, and that one. So we got 4 new arrays. So we're going to take it. We're going to get. Get is a command that you call for an array to basically get its index. So we're basically saying get the index. You can set the index, but we want it whatever the stance is. Selected stance is just a variable I created for the character. That's an integer variable that is, it's going to go from 0 to 3 because I'm basically treating it like an array index integer. Because you have 4 stances. Stance 1 is 0, stance 2 is 1. To make the array, 4 choices. That's basically what happened there. So then I get the index, and then I tell it to play that flip book and make sure I did the right one. I did not do the right one. Yes, I did. No follow-up. I did not. To stance, instance, no follow-up, no follow-up, block follow-up, yep, hit, get, hit, no follow-up, and let's extend this down. I'm sorry if this blueprint looks ugly. I tried to organize it as best as I could. So from doing that, that basically allows me to say, when I call update animation and I tell it, so what we're going to be doing is we are going to be in the idle stance for stance attack, stance 1. And then we're going to tell it to go to attack up. Well, now we're going to tell it to do the dash. Then we're going to tell it from the dash, do the attack up. Whether or not it's going to be a block or a hit, that's what we're going to have to program. But what I was getting at is, so now I get to say, update animation, hey, go to, I forgot attack dash. I'm going to be honest, it's probably better that I'm streaming and explaining what I'm doing, because I probably was going to miss that, as well as the other things that I missed before. So, hey, it actually kind of works to sit there and explain it, and honestly that would be good practice for whenever you're implementing anything, is to kind of look at it and, you know, make sure that you explain it to yourself so that it makes sense, because that's kind of the easiest work, because that happens all the time. Sorry, what I'm doing with visual blueprint scripting, I like to keep it organized. I like to make sure that there's not much spaghetti code, as they call it. This is a little bit spaghetti code, but I think it works better than to do selected stance for each single one. So just a little preference. And just those moments where I'm not really doing anything but just kind of shifting, that's why. Because I just want to make sure that it looks organized. There we go. All right, so we have attack dash now. So, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be saying, you're going to start off in idle for stance 1. When the command to do your attack goes... Oh, I just realized it said that my stream died. No. No, it looks like it's still going. For some reason, the live counter reset. And there was like a black screen for a second there. Not sure what that was. Okay, anyway. I'm sorry, because I was in the middle of saying something. So I'm going to be in stance 1, idle. Then when I run the command to do the attack, we're going to go to dash attack first. So I'm going to call update animation, and I'm going to change animation state to attack dash. That calls this, that goes here, that then says, okay, here's attack dash, and now I got to add that. Now I got the flip book for attack dash. Okay, attack dash is now the animation that's playing on the screen. Because basically, when you set your flip book, it defaults to a loop, so it's just going to be looping over and over again. Which is what you want for an idle animation. You know, that's kind of the idea of an idle animation, is that the character just kind of loops. You know, they do their breathing animation. But when you set the flip book to the dash, the attack dash, it's going to do the attack dash, and then it'll just keep doing it until you leave the state. Okay. So again, if I didn't go back to explain that, totally would have missed that wasn't there. So I think that's an overall lesson for me. So with that in mind, I am going to fully explain the rest. So then we do attack dash. Goes here, goes there. In this case, we're in stance 1. So we get the index for stance 1. Here's just like the stance. Get index 1. Okay. Now I know you want index 1. Here's index 1's flip book because it's in the structure right here for attack dash. That's what it's calling in this exact moment. And then it says the flip book. Okay, cool. Now we're dashing. Obviously, the dash is 7 frames, so we're not going to be in that stance for very long. So we're going to run it, and then we're going to call update animation again. Tell it now to go into attack up block, because right now the enemies block if they have the stamina regardless. So block is going to be our first one. And then it's just going to do the same exact process. Okay, so we're doing attack up block, no follow-up. Okay, I need to set the flip book. Okay, what flip book do I set? Okay, well, here's the structure. Here's attack up block, no follow-up. Hey, we're in stance 1. Okay, that's the flip book we got. Boom. That's your new flip book. So, there you go. That's how that process is going to work. All with this nice little line of code right here. All right, let me check the time. I was planning on doing roughly about a 2-hour and 30-minute stream. It is currently 2 hours and 21 minutes at this point. I think to follow up from here is going to definitely take me longer than 9 minutes. So I think I'm going to end the stream here, and this is where we'll pick off for next time. So next time we are going to actually program these animations to run in the game flow. because we're going to say, okay, this is when the player needs to attack. This is when we need to do it, switch the animations, and then switch back. So the reason why I'm saying it's going to take me longer than 9 minutes is because now I have to program when the player is blocking versus when the enemy is blocking versus when the enemy is going to get hit. I feel like that's going to be a little bit more work than what I have currently programmed in there. So that is where I'm going to leave it for today. This was my first stream ever, so it was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work on this game and let you guys see the development. I would love to see comments in the YouTube section to tell me what you guys like, what you don't like. I don't think I've shown too much of the game, just kind of like the little showcase in the beginning. I guess I could take this moment to just kind of say what's my overall goal. I told my school buddies from Full Sail that my goal is to get this game presentable and playable at the next Game Developers Conference in 2022, which is going to be in March of 2022. At this point, it is, last we heard, it was going to be in person, but with COVID, who knows how that will go. But even if it's a virtual presentation, that is still my goal. That's what I'm going to aim for. Being a game developer is my dream. It's what I went to school for, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, because I want to develop many games for many people to play and enjoy. So don't have to give my life story, but obviously, since it's a dream of mine, I'm really hoping that, this stream can build up a community, because I would love to talk with other players, get their thoughts and feelings, have them try my game, because that's also at the forefront of my mind, is I really want to make this to a point to where I can get this playable for other people to try it out and see if they like it and what they don't like, and I want all the honest feedback. I want you to tell me if it's awful and you freaking hate it. I need that. I need to know what I need to fix so that the end product will be good. And just some overall thoughts. It's like, yeah, it's scary. Just doing the stream was scary because it's so much more comfortable, just kind of doing the stream on, It's so much more comfortable just kind of working on the game in isolation and like, oh, I think this looks cool, so I would like to try this. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, just because I think it's cool, does that mean, that other people are going to think it's cool? Does that mean that other people are going to think, are other people going to like it? So that's kind of why I'm challenging myself. Thank you, Brett. I love your support. I know you're going to be there for me. So it's fun. It's exciting. This is a new chapter in my life. Is basically how I've felt about it when I went back to Full Sail University 2 years ago to get a degree in game design. And but even back then, this was my plan. My plan was get the degree and then become a game developer and start making games. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm here. So thank you guys for joining or watching. I will be streaming again Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you guys very much.